viewers, and welcome to the latest edition of Waadaplaya Talk Show. New Year's time. New Year brings with us a lot of new hopes, new resolutions, new memories. But for us cricket fans, it also brings us New Year's Test match. So today, we're going to discuss New Year Test matches between New Zealand and Pakistan and Sri Lanka and South Africa. For this discussion, I have with me Vishak, who is a fellow member of the Waadaplaya family. Hello, Vishak.
Hi everyone. First of all, a very happy New Year to everyone, and wish you all success and prosperity in this New Year.
Thank you, Vishak. So what does this New Year mean to you, Vishak?
Yeah, hopefully, like we are currently in the new normal where we wear masks and we are restricted in many places. Hopefully, this goes off, and we get a vaccine, and life becomes normal going forward. And hopefully cricket matches start and we are allowed to go into the stadium where we can go and support our favorite teams.
That's very nice. So without further ado, let's get into the first of the two test matches between Pakistan and New Zealand. So looking at the first test match, which happened at Christchurch, do you think Pakistan has any chance in the second test match?
Actually, Pakistan played pretty well in the second innings, I felt. So they were pretty gritty and they almost saved the test match, where New Zealand had won with 27 balls to spare. But with the absence of Babar Azam in their team, I don't think they have the required armory to actually kind of beat New Zealand in their backyard.
So you do think that Babar Azam not being there in the team is going to hit them very, very bad?
Yeah, it is definitely going to hit them. Not as a captain, but as a star batsman. He's a star batsman, and like even like Mohammad Rizwan has spoken of him as like Pakistan's Kane Williamson, and even Kane Williamson has said that he definitely makes a difference to their team. And had he been there, the result would have been slightly different.
What do you make of Fawad
a
Alam's innings in the first innings? Because it's been like what 4,200 odd days between his two centuries. Or what do you make of his innings?
Do you mean to say the second innings?
Yes.
Do you mean to say the second innings?
Yes.
Yeah. I was pretty surprised actually, like because in the first video I had mentioned that after for the first test I had mentioned with this technique, if he continues to play like that, he might be a walking duck in front of Bolt in Saudi. But he proved me wrong. He played a very determined and gritty innings. But still, I maintain my sentence that with this technique, I don't think he can survive for long.
Okay, so moving on to the second test here, it seems to be a seamer-friendly pitch out there. So do you expect any changes? I'm just going to share my screen to show the playing 11.
Yeah.
And then let's discuss this further. Yeah. So this is what the playing 11 would perhaps look like for the second test.
Yeah.
So let's go through the New Zealand 11 first. Do you think there will be any changes to this?
There'll be no changes, but the thing is, New Zealand are forced to make a change because Neil Wagner is out with a broken toe, and that is ideally they would have liked to bring in Lockie Ferguson, who is usually their 12th or 13th man, who's their backup seamer. But now that he is injured, they will have to go with Matt Henry. Now, Matt Henry did not have that much good debut in Australia, and he would like to make amends, and he would like to be part of the fringes in the side. And yeah, like I think he's also a good pacer. He has raw pace. I think he'll make an impact on this test.
Would you be tempted to include Santner on a pitch where wickets might be falling pretty regularly? If you remember the previous test between India and New Zealand, none of the teams scored about 250. So would you want his batting option as well?
I think Daryl Mitchell is also a decent bat. If the pitch is quite green and spicy, I would like to go with New Zealand having an all-out pace attack and attacking Pakistan. But Mitchell Santner can also do a holding role and give some rest to the New Zealand. Yeah, it would be a good choice for him to be included as well.
Okay. Coming to the Pakistan 11, do you see any changes in there? Because you seem to have predicted Sohail Khan being brought in place of Nazim Shah. So yeah. What do you make of Sohail Khan?
Like Sohail Khan is an outright swing bowler. Now, conditions being spicy out there, it will definitely help him, and he can, if he bowls in the right areas, he can run through the New Zealand batting order. So I think Naseem Shah, he is pretty young right now. He is a good pacer, but right now for this test match, I would prefer Sohail Khan again because of his ability to swing. But whereas this Naseem Shah is actually a seam bowler, I don't think he'll be helpful in these conditions.
So Yasir Shah for his bowling or his century batting abilities?
Yeah, that 1 inch, I don't think we can have as a batsman because of that 1 century he scored in Australia. But Yasir Shah, I would always consider as a bonus. And any runs from the bottom four from Pakistan is a bonus.
So the lineup pretty much remains the same except for Sohail Khan coming in place of Naseem Shah. That's your prediction.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only vulnerability which I see in that lineup is Haris Sohail, who failed in both the innings. So they might look to bring in Imran Butt instead of him, but I think they will still stick with Haris Sohail and try him out in this test match instead of putting in a
So
debutant straight away when there is a lot of pressure.
so in short, you're going for New Zealand wrapping up the series.
Yes, they are going to wrap up this series 2-0, and they're going to go top of the rankings.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to the next test match, the New Year's test match. This one's between Sri Lanka and South Africa. Looking at the first test match, how Sri Lanka fared, they were hit by injuries galore. Almost half of their team could not even make it to the playing field. So obviously there will be plenty of changes for the Sri Lankan side. Let's have a look at the playing 11 in a moment. But this match being in Johannesburg, what kind of expectation do you have from South Africa's performance?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty green pitch. I think South Africa is just going to run through the Sri Lanka batting order. And unless Sri Lanka shows some grit and something, I think it's going to be another innings defeat for Sri Lanka.
Okay, let's quickly get into the playing 11. Yeah, so this is the predicted playing 11 from Vishak for the South Africa versus Sri Lanka match. South Africa's team more or less the same. Maybe we might see Bjorn Hendricks come in place of Lutosi Pamla since he's been now included into the team. Sri Lanka, plenty of changes. Vishak, would you like to run through this 11 from Sri Lanka?
Yeah, the way Sri Lanka, and one more thing, the way Sri Lankan players got injured in the first test. Their coach Mickey Arthur was supposed to say that the way they're lucky that they got 21 players, otherwise they had to field Grand Flower and Williamson. So looking at the way they are getting injured, I won't be surprised even if that happens.
Let's not hope that that's going to happen.
And coming to the let's not hope for that. Let's now going through the lineup. They're forced to make 4 changes, where both of the seamers, Lahiro Kumara and Kasun Rajita, were injured. So they have to bring in Dushman Testamira and Asita Fernando, who's a debut. So in the bowling front, those are the 4 changes. And in the batting lineup, they had Dinesh Chandimal, who's out with a groin injury, and also Dhananjaya De Silva, who batted pretty well. Unfortunate, like I think both the batsmen, Dinesh Chandimal and Dhananjaya De Silva, were the star performance in the first innings, and they batted pretty well. Like Sri Lanka will miss them in this test match, but they'll be, I think, as I mentioned, they'll be replaced by Lahiro Tirimane and Minod Bhanak.
Looking at the lineup, Wanindu Hasaranga's performance in the first test was pretty good, but he seems to be injury prone as well. If he is fit, would you still play him on the spicy pitch, or would you replace him with someone like an all-rounder, like a Lahiru Madhushanka, which you've mentioned out there?
Yeah. Wanindu Hasaranga was injured while he was fielding on the third day, and he was seen limping throughout the day. And even he was not comfortable while he scored his 50. He was not taking some quick singles, and out of which I think he even ran out one of his partner, I think Vishwa Fernando. So yeah, I'm not sure if he's fully fit. If he's fully fit, I would still be tempted to include him, considering his all-round abilities. And since Dasun Shanaka can also bowl some medium pace, like we want to, and he's also Bazanido Hasaranga being a wrist spinner can also be an attacking option. So like I would go with Vanindu Hasaranga, but if Vanindu Hasaranga is deemed injured, then yeah, I might go with an all-out pace attack and include Lahiru Madhusan.
Oshada Fernando, he seems to be a good talent for Sri Lanka, but every time he comes close to playing in the 11, he gets injured. If you look at LPL, it was pretty close to the South Africa Sri Lanka series. So, do you think people could have rested during this particular LPL so that these many injuries would not have occurred at all?
Definitely. If you see the case of Angelo Matthews, he was injured during the LPL, and he in some of the matches he did not even come to bat. He was seen wearing a like what to say. He was seen injured and he was wearing a kind of bandage on his thigh, but still he played the semifinals, risking his participation in the series, and his injury got worse. So at least some of the main test players who were supposed to play here could have rested, and they could have been fresh here, so that because this being a like this is part this series being a part of Test Championship, it is pretty important for Sri Lanka, both Sri Lanka and South Africa, considering they are at the bottom of the table. So definitely some of the players could have rested who are injury prone, like Matthews and players like that.
Okay. Let's shift our focus to the South African 11 now. Faf du Plessis, 199. What an innings in the first test. And the expression on the face of the players said it all when he missed out on his double century. What do you make of that kind of an expression from the team?
First of all, let's talk about Pat du Plessis' innings. That was a fantastic innings, and he was terrific. It was a chanceless innings, and he was ably supported by Dean Elgar, Bauma, Mulder, and even Keshav Maharaj. What was more impressive was the later part of the innings, where he played with the lower order, where he carried them through and made them bat like proper batsmen. He did not shield the strike. In fact, in the partnership with Van Mulder, it was Van Mulder who was dominating, and he allowed him to do that, and he gave him more confidence to play the way he wants to. So that was more impressive. And coming to the dismissal, like they were absolutely gutted when he got out. It was more disappointment than surprise. Yeah, that shows a clear team spirit, how they are playing as a single team. Yeah, it was unfortunate for him to miss out on that well-deserved double hunt.
He seemed to have rushed into the shot. I mean, he had plenty of time, but seemed to have just tried to chip it over the fielder's head. But unfortunately, just missed out on the double
Yeah,
century. It was a well-deserved
yeah,
double century, though.
it was a very deserved double century, and as I mentioned, it was a chanceless innings until.
So, talking about Buran Hendricks, he seems to be in and out of the team, but always on the verge of making the playing 11. He could have made his case in the first test, but due to injury, he could not play the first test.
I
Now, do
think
you
he
see
will.
him replacing Sipamla, who actually pretty much impressed everybody once his nerves settled?
Yeah, but Bjorn Hendricks, I think, would have played the first test had he was not out because of COVID. Now it's like he still has to clear two tests, and they have to make sure that his body is fully fit, is recovered completely, and they are even waiting his antigen tests. So if he's fit, I think they will be tempted to play Bjorn Hendricks because he's a pretty good bowler. But it will be harsh on Luthos Impamla, who, because he performed pretty well, he was very good. He was pacey and he was rushing the batsman through. But I think if Bjorn Hendricks is fit, they'll be forced to play him.
Kagiso Rabada, any chance he's going to make the 11?
Yeah, like as uh, Boucher mentioned, like just because of his name, they might be tempted to play him, but also they want to manage his workload considering they have pretty good series against Sri Lanka. So, and they have further series, and he has not played Test series almost for a year. So I think they might rest him and try to consider him for the further series.
I've heard Mark Watcher say that he's going to still prefer Keshav Maharaj, even though it's going to be a spicy pitch. So, do you think Keshav Maharaj's batting has pushed him into the 11?
No, I think again, as I mentioned, any runs from the lower order for any team is a bonus. So Keshav Maharaj, I think, will purely play as a bowler. He will do the bowling. I think they have quality four seamers, and Vian Mulder was pretty impressive in the first test. I think he was among the bulk of the wickets in the first innings, and he bowled pretty well. So considering they have four quality seamers, I think they would want Keshav Maharaj to do the holding role and giving rest to the seamers by bowling from one end.
Quinton de Kock, for one captain who, even though he's performing well as a captain, doesn't seem to be liking his captaincy much. Do you think he will be dropping off from the captaincy post the series?
I don't think he'll be dropping off immediately after the series. Like as he had mentioned, he will wait until like they find a able replacement. So they would want to groom a captain first, maybe someone like an Eden Markram, who has captained at the junior level in the under 19s, and so they might want to groom him. But for that to happen, Aiden Markram also has to be consistent. He has been pretty inconsistent so far in his test career. So they might have to find a able replacement, groom him, and then I think Quinton de Kock will be quitting. He won't. I don't think he'll be quitting as soon as this test series is over.
So your prediction for the match? Do you see Sri Lanka making a comeback in this?
As I already mentioned, I'll be surprised if they avoid an innings defeat. But yeah, I don't see Sri Lanka winning this with like almost four of their first choice players missing.
I remember us, predicting that the Asian teams should be winning the Christmas Test match, Boxing Day Test match. But looking into the New Year's Test, so we are going to go against that particular wish of ours, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do want the Asian teams to do well, but realistically, I think, if speaking realistically, but I don't think it is going to happen.
Okay. Just before we wrap up this series, Kane Williamson, the new #1 Test batsman. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely magnificent. It's like has been class apart, and like he's almost carrying that New Zealand side through. If you see the previous series against West Indies, none of the batsmen performed. And he almost scored a double century, and he carried the team to a very high total, about 450 or something. So like even on a spicy pitch, he knows give him any pitch, he can bat. He can bat for life. Is a class apart, and he deserves that #1 position.
Absolutely. He dethroned two of the top batsmen along in his era, actually, Virat
Yes,
Kohli and Steve Smith.
and
So
both of
that
his
is something.
contemporaries. Yeah, both of his contemporaries.
That is something. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vishak, for your insights regarding these two tests. We'll be looking forward to catching up with you in the future series as well. And to all of viewers,
Thanks,
thank you
Akash.
so much for subscribing to this video and the channel. And we look forward to your support in the coming days.
Thank you.